Okay, so we need to go through this fast because there's a party tonight. So, my name is Shay Shmeltzer. I'm a Director of Product Management for the Oracle Cloud Development Tools. So our group is the group that builds products that are then being used by the Oracle developers as well as our customers to build applications. So we're the guys who brought you stuff like Oracle Forms and ADF and JDeveloper and MAF and JET and Developer Cloud Service and Application Builder Cloud Service. And this is basically one thing that we're doing is we're giving the same tools to you guys as we're giving to our guys internally to build applications. They are kind of our beta customers usually, so in a lot of cases, they get the rough edges and you get a product that is a little smoother. That's my Twitter handle, jdevshay. If you want to get updates on the stuff I'm presenting, when I blog new stuff or things like that, you can just follow me. So this session is specifically about developing mobile applications for on-device mobile applications, okay? And I think what I need to clarify first is what's the difference between what I call on-device and what's the difference between on-device and web, okay? When you're building an application, a lot of people, when they are targeting a mobile device, their initial approach is we already have a web application, we have a web interface. All we need to do is make sure that the web interface is something that can fit into the small UI, and we're done. That's basically our mobile presence. And it's true that this could be a mobile solution, but it's not an optimized mobile solution. Responsive web is basically what you're going to do is you're going to take your mobile device, open the browser on your mobile device, type the URL of your website, you'll get to the page, and if the developer has been nice, he would make sure that the page resize, arrange itself to the mobile device. On-device applications, on the other hand, are actually installed and are running on the device itself. Okay? So there's a few differences here. One aspect is where is code executed. Okay? In the web scenario, you run inside the browser. The logic is usually executed on the server that serves you the code, the UI. In on-device applications, you're running on the device itself, and the logic is also executed on the device itself. Okay. In terms of how you design your UI, web applications usually use concepts of responsive UI. Okay, so this is like moving things to be one under the other, or making the font a little smaller, stuff like that. On-device applications usually build a mobile-targeted UI, and I'll show you some of the aspects to consider there in the next slide. The look and feel, web application, you're basically whatever you design your web UI for. On-device application usually use the native look and feel of the operating system. Okay, so it would look like an Android application or like an iOS application. One thing to take into account is that a lot of the web application, the interaction that you do there is mouse-driven. This is how they were built. And then you're trying to emulate the mouse interaction with your finger, which is not always an easy thing to do. Okay? On-device applications usually have a different type of interaction. They are actually built for touch interactions. And there are stuff and patterns that you do in mobile applications that you don't do on web. For example, this motion of swipe. Okay? So you know how if you're looking at your emails, you swipe to delete one? There's no concept like this in web interfaces, as far as I know. Okay? And those are things that when they accumulate, they make a difference in the user experience. Okay? Another aspect is device leverage. So those mobile devices, those things, those are not just screens. They actually have capabilities, whether it's offline storage or location-based or camera interactions. And if you're building a web application, the amount of device interaction that you can do is limited compared to what you can do if you're building something that is targeted for running on device that uses the interfaces the device offers. Okay? And then it even starts again from, this is where you started, where how do you access the application, whether you need to open a browser, go to a URL, type everything, all the URL, which is kind of hard to do on a mobile device, versus just clicking a button and going there. Yeah. So those are some of the differences between what we call web and on-device. Both of them will create a mobile application, but there are differences in how those applications behave. I want to drill down on two aspects. One is where is the code actually being executed and why does it matter in a mobile scenario. One of the aspects of mobile devices is that this is client-server. You have a client that talks to a server, and the network is not a cable, it's a wireless network, which means that performance is not always great, which means that a lot of people have data limits on how much data they can move over this network. Okay? And those are things that you need to take into account when you're designing a mobile application. You want to minimize the amount of network traffic, both because of performance and because of, again, the limitations on data consumption. So think about when do you actually access the server, how frequently and for what operation. A lot of the web applications, for example, when you leave a field and you want to do a validation, they would fire a transaction to the server over the network to do the validation on the server, because this is where the logic is. And this is not a good thing to do. You want to keep those things on the client as much as possible. Yeah. Also think about what information do you pass between the server and the client. If you look at the page that you're displaying and you're passing the HTML and the JavaScript and everything else all the time from the server, this is pretty heavy compared to actually having the code already on the client. Okay, and just passing in the data that changes in the page. Okay. So this is, again, differences in where you spend your time and effort in network traffic. Okay. It also impacts the responsiveness of the UI and the overall experience. That's basically one thing to take into account. One other aspect I mentioned before is the mobile patterns. No matter how much you reorganize a web application, it's not going to look like a true mobile application. There are stuff that you see in mobile application that right now people don't emulate in web, whether it's like those type of menu aspects here, or like the buttons at the top, or this, again, swipe motion to pass between things. In a lot of the web-based mobile UIs, you don't actually achieve those. You also need to take into account aspects of landscape, portrait, different device sizes, stuff like that. At the end of the day, at Oracle, we have a group that specializes in UX and user interactions, and they do a lot of research on usability of application. Their conclusion for us was that responsive web is far from being optimized for a mobile experience. And at Oracle, if you look at what we're doing, when we're building mobile application, we're building a mobile dedicated UI experience. We're not taking what we have and just making it work on the mobile device. If you're looking at the mobile applications that we have on our stores, like on the Google Store, iTunes Store, all of them were, I don't know if all of them, but probably 99% of them were developed specifically with a mobile target. Okay? And so this is our approach. You can choose to adopt it or not, but that's our belief. All right. So if you decided that you want to build an application that runs on the device, you can go and you can write in the iOS environment using the iOS interfaces. You can go and you write in the Android environment with the Android interfaces and API and SDKs, and then you can do the same thing on Windows with the Windows SDKs. This was a problem for us because this means developing each application 2 or 3 times, depending on how many platforms we're targeting. So what we've been a big believer in is hybrid approaches, which allow us to develop an application once and run it on multiple platforms. We actually have two technologies that support those aspects of developing a mobile on-device application that runs across multiple operating systems but provides a native-like experience. Okay? I'll start from the right side, Oracle MAF, the mobile application framework. That was the first framework that we made available. This is basically some of the extensions of Oracle ADF or building on the concept from Oracle ADF. This is a Java-based development environment or development framework where you do declarative development through the use of Oracle JDeveloper as the development tool, and you define your application mostly declaratively by using components and writing Java code when you need to do logic and things like that. Okay. That's one solution. The other solution that we are now more and more using is Oracle Jet. Jet stands for the Java Extension Toolkit, and that's the Oracle JavaScript toolkit for building JavaScript-based UIs. One nice thing about JavaScript is that it runs pretty nicely on mobile devices, and the development experience with Jet is mostly coding. You actually end up coding code. You can use any tool to develop with Jet. We have some special features that we built into NetBeans for HTML5 JavaScript development and some wizards for Jet as well. But people basically use any editor that they want to develop JavaScript. Both of those solutions allow you to build applications that run on the device, that leverage device features, and that provides you native look and feel across the platforms. Okay? And then the decision on which one to go would be based on whether you're a Java developer or a JavaScript developer, whether you like a little bit more declarative or a little bit more control by coding stuff. Okay. So those were the two solutions. And one thing that bothers us a little was this aspect that over here for building Jet application, you needed to do coding. And in parallel, the other thing that happened is that we saw more and more demand for allowing even less technical people to build mobile device resident applications. And this is when we came up with something called the Oracle Application Builder Cloud Service. And that's the product that I'm going to demo today. So I'm going to do probably like 2 more slides, and then I'm going to spend the rest of the session doing a demo of building an application. Application Builder Cloud Service is an environment that allows you to build and host web and mobile applications that are built using Oracle Jet, by the way. And it focuses on providing a faster and simpler way to build those applications by providing a visual development experience and zero install. There's nothing that you can't download this product. This is a cloud product. You develop with it from the browser, and you run it from your browser or your mobile device. You run the application. Okay. One aspect to remember here, this is both the build and the hosting. It's the development platform and the runtime platform for the applications that you build. Okay. Although the mobile application runs on the device, but it talks to the backend that you develop here. Okay. This tool is targeted on one side at what some people call citizen developer, business analysts, because you can do development without coding and you can build a full application without writing a line of code. But if we are actually allowing you to take this product further if you know how to code, and if you're one of those type of developers which we refer to as rapid developers, the guys who like to build things fast, visually, then this can be a great solution for you also as a professional developer. Okay. It's important for us to take Application Builder Cloud Service as part of a little bit bigger picture at Oracle of what we call the Visual Development Platform. And this is kind of the overall architecture of what we're talking about here. We're talking about a platform that allows you to build both web and on-device application, okay, sharing the same UI components between them. These are the Jet UI components, okay, the JavaScript-based UI components, as well as UI components that you can develop and add, okay? So you can build your own HTML5 JavaScript components and add them into, for example, your web application. We're using all the best practices from our UI design system, Oracle Alta. what I talked about before, the usability group that builds stuff and design patterns and templates and stuff like that. We're using it in this platform. We're not just focusing on building the UI, we're also allowing you to build the business objects. So the objects that actually access the data and expose the data and do all the operations on the data. The data can come in from a database that is included in Application Builder Cloud Service or from any third-party REST service. We can also tie those business services, or we can also tie those business objects into processes. So we have integration built in with the Process Cloud Service, which, and for those of you who are not familiar, Process Cloud Service allows you to run long-running processes that usually involve multiple people in the organization. For example, if you need a travel approval and you put in a request and then it goes to the first level manager and he clicks approve, then it goes to the next one. All of this is managed by something called the Process Cloud Service. We can create those processes and invoke them directly from business objects here or from the UI. We have a builder that allows you to build all of this. We also are going to have deeper integration with the content management part. And at the end of the day, our goal is for you to be able to build applications and also distribute them through the marketplace that Oracle has. Okay. So most of this is already in place. Some parts here are coming next. So this is kind of the platform, and what I wanted to do is show you how to use it. Okay. So I'm going to start a browser, and I'm going to go into one of my many ABCS instances, and you can get one too. All you need to do is request a trial and you'll get the same type of environment. And that's me going into the development environment. Okay, I basically open a browser, go to the URL, and I have the ability to look at the applications I already created or create a new application. So I'm going to start by building a web application, because this is also right now the place where you would build stuff like business objects. So I was trying to figure out a scenario for an application that would be a little bit meaningful. And one of the scenarios I came up with is my new startup, which is a parking-related system. So, you know, like over here, there's no parking problem. You come over and there's lots of parking. But if you live in the city, I told someone, like, Google Maps tells you how long it takes you to get from one place to another place. It doesn't calculate how long it takes you to run around the place looking for a parking spot, right? That's the enhancement I want them to build in. And they can probably do it, because they know, like, people get there and then they keep going turn right, because they're going in circles. So my idea was, how about I build an application that will allow people to sell their parking spot? Okay, so if I live in the city and I know that I'm not in the city on a specific weekend, I can put my own parking spot in here. People can come over and reserve this parking spot, pay me some money. Okay, that's kind of the scenario. So I'll call this application the parkour application, or ParkUR, or whatever. I can choose a layout for my application. I'll choose one that looks like Oracle SaaS application. We'll start by having parking spaces, something like that. Okay. So I'm not going to spend too much time on building the web application. I just wanted, for people who never saw ABCS, I think it's important to understand that this is the same environment for building web as it is for building mobile. So the web part I'm going to do pretty quickly. I'm going to spend more time on the mobile part. But in general, you design your application visually over here. You have a bunch of components on the left side that you can bring over. For example, this would split the page into two. Then you can say, I want to have, let's say, a table of parking spaces over here. Okay? And then if you don't have an object that contains this, you can create a parking object. And define that there's a name for it. Maybe there's an address. Maybe I need people to be able to call me, so this is my phone number. Choose a phone. Maybe people would also like to email me, so we'll choose an email field. You can also add, for example, whether this is available, something like that. Anything else? I think that would be fine for now. Okay, actually I didn't want here like 2 parts. Okay, we'll fix it in a second. Finish. Okay, let's take the table out of this space. Okay, like this. Then we don't actually need those 2 buttons here. All right, so this is my little application. I can now run it, and I can put in my parking spot. Now this is Shay's parking spot. Now usually I use my addresses around the Oracle HQ because I do all my demos at Oracle HQ. But because I'm going to use location-based aspects here, I needed some addresses in Texas. So I picked up just like places around here. So put something here. 650-506-5000. You can try and call this number. It's the Oracle main line. Okay. And save and close. So this is basically your typical CRUD application. Okay, you can go in. We'll call it, maybe Mike has another parking spot. This address. Okay, 650-505-9000. Okay. So this is how you would go about building one of those applications. And by the way, you can do other stuff here. You can, for example, make sure that when you click on an item, you can go and edit it. So if we now run this and you click on Shay's place, you can go over here and edit this page. So just to show you the concept of responsive UI, we can take the 2 columns, put it here, like this, and then move some of the fields over to the left side, and maybe the contact fields over to the right side, like this, and put this one over here. Okay. Oh, and by the way, let's create another table here. Let's create the reservation table. So we'll call this one reservation. And we're going to have a field of who reserved it, so name, and maybe we have a date. Okay, so when did he reserve this? Okay. So now not only can I run this and put in a reservation and say that Joe wants this space tomorrow, okay, I can also show you this is how the UI would look on a big screen. If you go into a small screen, this is responsive, right? So it moves things around. You now have one thing under the other, and you can actually customize it. So you can go one step further and say, you know what, this table, for example, instead of showing it as a table, when I'm on a mobile device, show it as a list component, okay? Or maybe when I'm on a small device, don't show me the available field. I don't know, maybe it makes sense for you to hide this. Actually, this is now, you should probably have this, but maybe you don't need both save and close, so you can remove one of the buttons. So this is how it's going to look on a small device, and then when you go into a bigger device, it's going to adjust itself. So this is me building a responsive web application in 5 minutes. Okay, and this is using Oracle Jet. And one thing to notice here, I started from nothing. I didn't have a database, I didn't have a web interface, and I built everything. Okay, and that's what we call productivity. And this is also, if you notice, I didn't exactly code anything. So this is why we say it's also appropriate for citizen developers. All right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to enable sharing of my business objects. Okay, and I'm going to do something called stage. And I'm going to stage with the development data. All right, so stage basically takes the application I built so far and creates an instance of it that I can use for testing. So I can give the URL to you guys. You can come in and start putting in information, or people in my department or my friends, and this is how I do kind of beta testing of my application. And ABCS allows you to basically continuously revision the application, update it, do stuff like that. The thing I did before I did staging is I clicked the share objects. This actually what it tells ABCS is that The business objects I created here, the parking space and the reservation, are going to be exposed for other applications that I'm going to build here. Okay? Now I'm going to do another step here, which is publish the application here with the same data from stage. This allows me to now build different interfaces on top of the same business objects. Okay? The business objects that I created here, okay, are exposed as REST services. So I actually created REST services that other applications can use. All right, so we now have, if I run this thing, okay, I'll go to a URL. This URL, I'm already logged into the cloud, so it would just bring in the application. I would see my data from the testing. I can see that if I move to be smaller, it adjusts. For example, there's the little menu in here for parking spaces instead of having the menu up here, stuff like that. All right, so that's my web application. That's nice. Now let's see how I would build a mobile optimized one. To do that, I'm going to go back to the home page, and I'm going to create a new application, but this time I'm going to choose mobile. Okay. And I'm going to call this application the mParkour version, because that's the mobile one. Okay. And now you can see that I can choose from a list of templates for pages. Okay? And those are, again, based on our experience in designing web mobile application, those are some of the best design patterns that we believe in. So I'm going to choose the one with the two tabs at the top, for example. Okay? So this would be this page, and we'll call this one Parking App. And the first tab would be Map, second one would be a list. All right. And I'm just, again, next step is I can choose which type of layout I want for my first tab. I'm just going to say I want a custom one, and I can create the application. You can also see visually how the application is going to look, your title, the two tabs over here, etc. And then, just like before, we are taken into a visual UI designer, which looks exactly like a phone. And now I can start adding stuff to this page. So what I want to have on the first page is actually a map, because I'm with a mobile phone somewhere and I'm looking for a parking spot. So I want to see stuff that is near me. So I'm going to take a map and drop it onto this area. And you can see, those of you who recognize, this is the Oracle HQ. This is where we are. So this is in California. It's the 101. Anyway, I want to add data to this map. I'm going to show data based on address, and I'm going to show multiple points on this map. Now the question is, where is this data coming from? So this data is coming from one of my other applications, for my parkour application. Okay? So when I go there, ABCS looks over, sees the two objects I created. I can choose the one that I'm interested in, choose which field has the address. For me, it's the address field. And whether I have any query parameters, and then I can click Finish. Okay. So now I have a map, and you can see it already zoomed in into my two locations. If you go outside, this is the road that we're on in right now. Okay. I can set properties for the map. For example, I can tell it to use my current location. Okay. And not where the points are. Right now, it's optimized for the points. I'm saying use my current location because this is working through a server which I think is in California. I'm going to see my HQ. But I later on will run it on my device. You'll see it coming back to Texas. So this is this page. I can also define actions. Okay. So on the map, you saw we have points that indicates the parking spots. So I can add an action, and here I have mobile actions. For example, when I tap on one of those points. Okay. And then I can say when I tap on it, the first thing it does is it sets this one as the current record, current object, and then I can say go and open another page. And I can define mobile transitions. Again, something that you usually don't get with a web is what type of visual transition you're going to have between pages. Okay? So maybe I want to have like a drill-in scenario. Okay? And then I'm going to create another page, and we'll create a detail page. Okay, this one will use this layout, for example. Okay, and we'll call this one parking info. And I think I actually need that should be okay. All right, what am I going to see there? I'm going to see a form of the data. Okay, finish, save. Now I have like the ability to click on somewhere and go into the parking info page. Click here, I go to the parking info, and now I can define what I'm going to see there. I'm going to see information from parking objects. I'm going to see maybe the name and the address and whether it's available, and also an email and a phone number that people can call. And by the way, you can rearrange stuff, so you can move stuff around like this. You can also do live preview to see the actual data. So you can, I don't know if you can see where you're sitting, but it's actually the same data that I created in the object over there. Okay. Next, it's going to fetch by the default, which is by the current object. I defined it before. And this is this page. Okay. Then I can go and say, you know what, I also want another area here. Okay. And here again, we can use one of our components. Let's use the map again here. And we can show you a map of where is this specific parking page. Okay. So this would be a single point. Okay. And we want it from the parking. We want to show you the address. Okay. And finish. So now we have a map where you can see this. All right. Are we done for now? Yeah, I'm trying to remember like the scenario I had in mind. Okay. We can also add a third tab. Oh, yeah. Over here, I might want to see all my reservations. Right? So I can say, over here, I want to have a list. Okay. Add data. This would be a table. And again, we have different formats for tables. This one would show me reservations for this parking space. I want to know the name and the date. All right. So this is how I build a mobile application. And now the nice thing is I can run it. Now run actually pops it up in a device emulator in my browser. And you can see that we immediately zoom in into our location. Okay. And if you scroll around, you would see the 2 points that I chose, like the 2 addresses. And I can click on this one and go and see the details of this place. And I can swipe to the side to get the map and swipe again to the side. Okay, swipe on the map actually swipes the map to the side. But if I click here, I can see the reservations that are exist there. Okay. I can also go back by navigating here to the map, or I can see the thing in a list. Oh, I didn't define the list, so let's go back and define the list. Right? So we have here a page navigator. We started on this page. There's a list tab here. We want to show here a list of all the parking spots. So we'll just add the data. Maybe we'll choose this type of layout. We show parking spaces. We want to show the name as the title, the address as a subtitle, and maybe if it's available as the value 1. And we can again do a live preview of the data. Click finish. Okay. So we have this thing. And then again, when we, we want to add a detail screen. Actually, I have a detail screen. Yeah, okay. So I don't want to add a detail screen because we already have one. I want to have an action on the list, component action on the list item. When I tap on it, I want to navigate to a screen. Okay, and this would be the screen I already created, the parking info screen. All right. So now I have my list in place. I wanted to do one more thing, which is when I was in the parking info, not on this tab. On this tab, when I see all the information, I'm on a mobile device. So it would be nice, for example, if I take the phone and instead of just showing it as a text, I'll actually show it as a phone. Okay? And if I take the email and instead of just showing it as a text, I'll show it as an email. Okay? And I'll take the available and instead of showing it as a text, I can do, what is this? The switch type of thing. All right. So now when I run this, okay, and I click on a parking spot and I see the details, I can click over here. It would open my email client, Thunderbird in my case, okay, because I'm on a over here. If I click on a phone, it would try and open FaceTime. Yeah, we don't want to open right now. All right. So one interesting thing here is, go back here, is that, oh, and we also have the list page, okay, this is how the application is going to look like on an iOS device, okay, and this is how it's going to look like on an Android device. Initially, you don't see the differences unless I point it out, but if you look, for example, at the tabs at the top, there's a different way that tabs show up on iOS versus how they show up on Android. Okay, this is the native look and feel. And when you click on something, there's usually like a different way that you see, for example, this switch over here. Again, it's going to look different between iOS and Android. So this is where we put in this native look and feel aspect. All right. So now that I have my little application working, maybe I want to actually test it not just in my browser, but rather on device. So one thing I can do here is I can test on phone. And then I'm going to click Build Test Application. It would take it, as it says, a few seconds. And I have here a mobile phone. And if you all sit a little closer, no, just kidding. I'll figure out a way to show it to you. Let's see if it works. Let's see. This one. This one? No. Yeah, let me try to do this. Quit this one. Start this one again. Oh, I might need to disconnect this one. Come on. Good. One more time. What I'm trying to do is broadcast this over here. Oops, there we go. No, this is not what I was trying to do. There we go. Oops, like that. So now you can actually see my screen. So we have a little application called Max that you can download from the Oracle, not from the Oracle, sorry, from the iTunes or Google Store. And when you click on it, okay, it would pop up. There's a delay between here and there. So, okay. And then there's a little plus button down here. And when you switch, when you click on the plus, we get a little scanner. Okay, so you can see yourself on the screen, like this. Okay, you can see you sleeping. No. And then when we clicked here, test on phone, this was generated for us. It's a QR code. So I can now scan the QR code with my phone. Okay, I'll switch very quickly so you'll see what happened. I scanned it, and oh yeah, it couldn't reach the download server because I didn't connect to the Wi-Fi. Okay, let me connect to the Wi-Fi for a second. Okay, scope 17. All right. Hopefully this didn't mess up my demo completely. Click the plus sign. There's my little QR code. Click. Okay. So it's downloading stuff, installing it. So what it does now, it's going over to the cloud where I created my application, and it downloads the application to my device and installs it on my device. Okay. Now it will probably depend on the speed of the Wi-Fi here.
Is that the same way you distribute it to users?
Yes, they would basically pick it up and scan it. And then when I try to invoke it, it asks me to log in. So this is my actual password, so I'm going to hide it for a second so you won't see how I log in. But it's basically my email at oracle.com, and then the password tiger, all right, like this. Now I can go back here. Actually, the S should be lowercase s. And then I click sign in. Over here, it's already loaded. Okay, and there you go. So now my application over here works. I can move my map around. I can click on a point, drill down into the specific parking space, and I can move around to get to see the map. Okay, I'll click here and move to see the next page with reservations. Okay, and if I go back over here and actually click the email, it would pop up my email software. Okay, if I go back and I click the phone, it would pop up my phone application. So we have no, this is right now it's mobile phones. Okay. So, and by the way, again, can you say that? So you can also look, for example, up here on the left at the top. This is how we go back, okay, to this page. It's again, it's icons that are common to a mobile device. We have the little hamburger menu where we can go back here and see our application, for example. Okay. So this is basically it. How are we doing on time? Nice. Yeah. That's the problem with having a tool that develops application too fast. You're done before you. Yeah, I was actually expecting more problems while I was working. I can show you about just other stuff that you can do in the application in terms of building it. Yeah.
What about looking at the jet? How do you write a jet?
Right. So right now, the way that the product is built is that we don't actually expose the jet code for you. So you can't take it and run away. Okay? We generate the code for you. We are looking into options in the upcoming releases where we'll give you more access to the jet code to modify stuff. But
Shay, can I ask you a question?
yeah, sure.
Right? So I use this and I love it. You know that, right? When I go in and I download my mobile app, it asks me for my username and password, and that's fine. But every single time I touch it, I have to log in again.
Not for me. Maybe because I'm Oracle VIP. I don't know. It's yeah. Where are we? So what we have is, again, it kind of depends on how you exit the application, I guess. But there's a button that does sign out, and there's a button that is called Max. And if I go back to the Max, okay, which will go back to the list of all the applications I have here, and I can try and invoke another application, just to show you that you can do things that look a little bit nicer than what I just built. This is, for example, one of the applications we built. It's built with Max, with ABCS. It's also responsive to this type of switching layout, so responsive in design. And you can click on stuff and drill down and get things that look better. Okay, so one of the things I don't do in demos is I don't spend time on making stuff look nicer. I'm trying to convey the functionality, but you can see, like, if you are truly building a mobile application, you do want to use those type of lists where you have icons next to stuff. Okay. Anyway, the reason I went into this application is not to show you how nice it is, although this is a nice aspect here. It's to show you that if I go back to the Max application now, and I invoke my parkour application again, it goes in because it's already logged in. So I think what happens is, yeah, if you're exiting the Max application completely, then we don't keep you logged in, okay? But if you're still working inside the Max application, going to other application, coming back, you're still under the same login scenario.
So every user should have account into your cloud, in this case?
Yes. The nice thing is that you don't have to pay for those users. We have a system, like we have an LDAP repository inside the cloud. We can also federate login into other systems. So we can use, the cloud can federate the authentication to other sources of LDAP repositories. One of the nice things that we can also do here is we can use the same login information as Oracle SaaS application. We can use your Oracle SaaS users to log you into this application. Okay. Yeah.
The application talks by REST with the objects.
Yes.
Can you use your own REST calls to get on your on-premise data?
Yes. I'll show you. I can do the whole thing, but since we have time. All right, if I go back to, no, actually it would take me too much time to do the whole thing, but I'll show you the basics. If I go back to my base application, the parkour one, actually I shouldn't click on this one because I don't want to go to the live version. I want to create a new version where I can add stuff. So I'll show you how to versions applications. Let's get version 1.1 of this application. What you saw me do is create an object in my database from scratch. But if you go into your data designer, this is where I created my object, or actually my two objects with the relationship between them. Inside the data designer, there's also a place to do access to other services. And I can click to add a service, okay? Actually I have one. So over here I have a mapping to Git repository. It's actually GitHub. Let's see, I'm not sure if this is one that works or not, but we'll see. Because it's not the one I used yesterday, it's another one. Although this is a demo that I'm doing so many times, so it might actually be one that works. This one doesn't require authentication, but you can have various types of authentication here. Okay, and then if you click on it, okay, so this list of URLs, I can show you where it's coming from. It's coming from GitHub. Okay, this is the list of open source projects that Oracle hosts on GitHub. So there's one called Accelerators, and there's one down here called ACCS Caching Java SDK. This is the same data that you're seeing over here, right? Accelerator, ACC. So once you do this mapping to the external service, you can now integrate it both into your web and your mobile application. So I can now go into, for example, my web interface right now and create a new page, call it the Git page, okay? And then just like before, drag a table onto this page. But this time, instead of connecting it to the parking, I connect it to the repositories, okay? And I take the name and the URL, and next. Okay. And now I have basically direct connection from my ABCS application to GitHub. So if I click here, this would go to GitHub and open a project. So yeah, I can access external REST services. Okay, so if you want to map to your own database, another system, and bring in data, that's how you would go about doing it. Any other questions? Yeah. Yeah, it's both iPhone and Android. So you can go to the, yeah, you go to the store, to the Apple Store, okay, and you download the Oracle Max application, and then our application goes into the Oracle Max application right now. What we are planning to do, okay, so the way it works right now, again, I'll try and repeat this point because I know this is a little bit tricky. Right. The way that we work right now is that the application that you generate or that you create in ABCS doesn't actually become an icon here, okay? We are going to do this, knock on wood, in one of our upcoming versions, where you will be able to say, take this application, make it into its own icon, put it on the store and download it. The way we work right now is that we have this client-side application called the Max application, and when you click on it, okay, you'll go into this type of URL that would show you all the applications, so all the applications that you add to this container. And you can click the plus and scan the URL for another application, okay? So for example, just to show you, I did a practice run yesterday of this demo. No, not this one. This one. So when I run this one and I click the test on phone, okay, I'll have a different URL and then I can scan this. Okay, it doesn't work on the big screen. Scan it on the small screen. Okay, and then this would go over and it will add this extra application into the Max application. Okay, so that's the way it works right now. Again, we are planning to allow you to package each application on its own.
What does it cost?
Peanuts. How much this costs really depends on when you talk to your account manager. Try to talk to them at the end of the quarter. It's usually much cheaper then. Okay, now taking it seriously, this is part of Oracle Application Builder Cloud Service. Oracle Application Builder Cloud Service is priced per developer, okay? And it's priced at $100 per developer per month, okay, with a minimum of 5 developers. Okay, and you can buy it for a year. So before any discounts, you pay us $6,000 and you get the ability to build as many applications as you want. Okay?
The end users, that's unlimited.
Free, yeah.
And how much data can you
The database that we have that comes with ABCS, it has 2 gigabytes of storage. Okay? But as we said, if you want more than that, you use REST services to another database and you bring the data over. Okay? So, by the way, this is a good place to mention that I showed you how to build application and stuff like that. Hopefully you got the feeling that it's easy to do. If you go into cloud.oracle.com, okay, and you look under platform, and under application development, there's a link to application builder. And when you click on it, there's a button that is called Try It. And when you click on Try It, and you fill out your information, okay, we'll give you a free 30-day trial where you can try and build and publish applications, okay, including in production. It's not limited in any way. So, for example, give you an idea. Maybe your kid's school is having an auction where they're selling a bunch of stuff, right? And you want to build a nice website where all the items are for sale and people can bid on this. This will take you about, 1 hour, 2 hours in ABCS to build it, another hour to have a mobile version of it. You get a 30-day trial, assuming you have 30 days for people to buy stuff, you're covered, okay? Yeah. So that's the potential.
How many applications are there on every one?
How many applications?
How many people are using it?
I can't tell you. It changes every day because every day more people buy it. This is relatively a new product. So, for example, the whole product itself, ABCS, was released in February last year. So it's a year and a bit old, okay? The part with the mobile stuff was released when? I think even after Open World. I don't remember when, but it's one of the versions. So one of the nice things here is This is a cloud product, so it's getting refreshed with new capabilities quite frequently. And you don't need to download a new version. It's automatically available for you in the cloud. So one day you'll come over to work on Monday morning, and hey, there's a bunch of new features. And I didn't do anything. So we do have customers. We don't have a lot of customers yet. We have a lot of people trying it out right now. Okay. By the way, if you're trying this out and you run into issues, we have a forum, but you can also feel free at this stage to email me directly. We are trying to help customers right now to get them to have production applications because, frankly, it's not that complex. Anyway, the slides that I have on the website, by the way, have a bunch of other information about features in details, okay, that we won't have time to cover here. About the UI first, the mobile optimized responsive web, the on-device mobile capabilities, which is what we showed today. It also talks about create your own data objects, add validation to them. So this is one thing you can also do. You can add business rules and triggers and stuff like that in a declarative visual way. There's the aspect of creating processes that are invoked. So for example, when I put in a request for a parking space, I can then fire up a whole process that runs behind the scene with Oracle Process Cloud Service. There's the ability to import and export data. Okay. There's the consuming existing REST services. There's building menus. There's the ability to add custom logic to your application. And there's security as well. So you can define users, roles, who can do what, stuff like that.
Can I get one question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, there's not development test and production run, you only have working versions. You have one
No, we actually have develop, test, and run. So when I build an application, I actually went through all the stages with you. When I'm building an application, over here, I'll go back to the home page, you would see that I have 3 colors, okay? This is a color of an application in development, okay? And this is the staged application, this is the, if we go by the name, this is the live version of the application, and there's also a stage called staged. So this is develop, test, production, okay? And I can have an application in production running right now, and then I can go and create a new version of the application, which is what I did here. Remember, we added the Git thing over there. Then I can go and I can say, okay, let's stage this new version. So I'm moving it from development into stage. Do I want a clean database or keep the database in my that I basically copy the data from my development instance, which is what I'm going to do. The more interesting thing is what's going to happen when I move it from stage to production. Okay, so I'll show you that step as well. So just so you know, what happens when I click here is that it goes over and it creates a new user in the database, okay, with the schema and the tables and the data in the tables. This is why it takes it a little bit of time. And then I can run my staged version, or I can go production. Production is click the publish. And you can see that now I have 3 options, okay? I can go production with my existing production data, or I can go production with clean data, or I can go production with data from stage. So we are very smart about how we promote your application between the stages.
When you add a mandatory attribute to the table,
Yeah, so yeah, you can basically, again, we didn't have time to do a full review of the product, but if you go into here, you can define fields, okay? On a field, for example, if we pick up the name field, you can define whether it's required, unique, read-only, sortable, searchable. You can do fields that are calculated. You can have initial value. You can do fields that summarize other tables. There's a lot of things you can do here.
you put the default value to it.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is basically create set initial default value. Okay. Yeah, well, we're kind of out of time.
Can I just say that if you go to YouTube and you query AWS, Shay has done an amazing number of very short videos that show you each and every one of these things. So if you don't get bored of watching Shay, he'll show you.
The guy with the strange accent.
It's just like an on-demand
Yeah.
training session.
If you go to our website, we have tutorials, we have videos, we have everything that you need in order to get started. And frankly, the tool is so easy that you can probably start without all of those. Right? Yeah.
How much what you did here can I do in mobile cloud service also?
It's the same tool, basically. So one thing that is not in mobile cloud service, so for those of you who don't know, mobile cloud service is our back-end cloud service that is responsible for providing mobile optimized REST services and a bunch of mobile capabilities. It also includes the UI development that we have here. What it doesn't include is the ability to create my own objects, which is what I started with. Okay, so that's the one nice thing that you have in ABCS. All right, if you have any further question, catch me during the event at the party, or just follow me on Twitter and ask me on Twitter. That's another option. Please fill out your reviews. Thanks, everyone.